I'm sure many of you know that I'm taking a course on the Synoptic Gospels and really uh, felt impressed to kind of expand on the story of the parable of the sower. Looking at the accounts through Matthew, Mark, and Luke, some of the significant differences, you can see it in the verses wrapping up the seeds sown in the thorns. Matthew and Mark say that when trials come, this person will be unfruitful, where Luke says their fruit won't mature, which feels more like a won't meet potential rather than a lack of fruit at all. See, where Matthew and Mark are both saying none at all, the language of Luke, because Luke's is more of a summary, feels a little bit more, it won't be to the standard that potentially God had for you. Looking at just subtle differences, Matthew, Mark, and Luke all use a different name for Satan, with Matthew using evil one, Mark using Satan, and Luke using devil. The ending changes a bit too, with Luke talking of honesty and goodness and patience, where Mark discusses 30-fold, 6-fold, and 100-fold. Matthew says 100-fold, 60-fold, 30. So these are just subtle changes in phrasing, but Luke's mentions actual biblical principles and fruit at the very end, which I'll kind of go into later. I just kind of wanted to bring attention to these little differences. Finally, also Mark mentions Jesus asking if the disciples are lacking in understanding of the parable. And so you may ask, how do the questions of Jesus at the beginning of Mark influence the way that we read the rest of the passage? That question that Mark asks, or that Mark accounts that Jesus asks, is, do you not understand this parable? How then will you understand the others? This is really telling. Jesus is stressing the importance of how understanding this specific parable will help them understand the rest. It discusses the differences of the people who hear the word of God. If this parable from Jesus is meant to be telling of how we may store the word in our heart, then this question at the very beginning stresses how understanding this is crucial to understanding anything else. This influences the deep reading of the rest of our parables. So as we read this, we should see this is of utmost importance to me to understand what Jesus thought was imperative for the disciples to understand, many of whom helped start the church. So for them to understand this, we should read this with the same responsibility that we have to understand what this parable is and how to carry this out. Moving over to Matthew, we kind of ask ourselves, why do we think that Matthew is emphasizing the importance of understanding this word? What is not stored in the heart as truth can be manipulated or stolen. I'm immediately reminded of Adam and Eve. Eve was easily tricked as she allowed her own desires to lead her astray, and Adam astray. Adam's own desires as well, but she was tricked. Simply because the serpent was able to be like, did God really say that? Without a full understanding, the enemy can use what God has sown in us for something else. So if we allow this to bring us just joy for a moment and then toss it off to the side, just like this parable talks about, we don't have this stored in our hearts enough that we too can be reminded of it during trials, can be reminded of it when other people need to hear these things. When we just simply toss it off as nothing, who are we but the people that Jesus was preaching and they didn't understand? And they hardened their hearts. We want to open our hearts to God's words. Luke, like I mentioned earlier, draws attention to the virtues of honesty and goodness and patience. Why? Why would he do this compared to Matthew or Mark's account? Without a good heart, like we've been saying, what is the point? By storing that word, the word of God, in your heart in an honest way, truthful, like Matthew talked about. Matthew talked about it being truthful, and patiently awaiting the fruit from storing that in an honest way, we are transformed by the power of the word and have learned how to store it and how to water it. I want to bring attention to how we as pastors can bring this to our church. A lot of us, I think, run into the trap of simply hearing, especially as pastors, or we're hearing, but not for the right reasons. We may not be seeing this as a biblical principle that we can apply to our lives, and more so, what was the teaching style like? How did he deliver that? That was great, and I feel like the congregation maybe needs that, but we don't maybe apply these things to ourselves first. Knowing that people may hear the word from you on any given week and not have fruit from it, not at all listen, maybe get joy from it and toss it off to the side, that's a reality. But how can we minimize that? For so many people in our congregations, they don't have jobs in vocational ministry. They have jobs with those who live in sin, and it makes them limited by those thorns. For them, finding ways to disciple them through their lives is vital for your church to have fruitful people and teach these people how to evangelize in their thorn-filled lives. No matter what, it is crucial that we as pastors take heed of Jesus' parable for ourselves first before it reaches our congregation. If we can't store this in our heart for ourselves and grow through that transformation through Jesus, how can we teach and disciple such a thing? So when we go, all right, how have I accepted the word of God? How have I turned that into something that I can water and I can grow and I can see the fruits of? What are times that I have really noticed that fruit? What are times that I've really noticed I kind of tossed something off to the side and I went, I'm regretful of that. We need to take account of these things, not just for ourselves and personal growth, but so that we can help our congregation to not make those mistakes and to store that word in their heart. If we simply go to them and go, you don't want to be like these two, you want to be like this person that stores the word in this way, and we move on, cool. What do they learn from that? We have to, just like the disciples, understand this for ourselves, first for our relationship with Jesus, but then second, to be able to preach to the church. If these are the people that started the church, like I said, these are the same, you're going to have to go out to those same people Jesus was preaching to, and now you are giving that. You are giving, this is what I've seen, this is what, taste and see. And so I want to encourage you to start noticing how you've applied these things into your life. Start noticing the areas that you have pitfalls, and really dive into this passage and these other parables, and do the same thing for your congregation. If you want them to store it into your heart, into their hearts, stress that importance and read this parable to them. Read this parable on how crucial it is for them to understand the Word of God and store it. It has power. Thank you very much.